Hello out there. My name is Laulu Akode and you are on to Inside Sources. Today, it's your take on some of the more recent editions of Inside Sources. And these are feedback from social media platforms and other sources. Here we go. The first is on the edition that features Senator Neda Imasuen. It says, NAS is a scam? It's a question mark. This is Mr. Nathaniel Abu. This 10th National Assembly under Senator Godswill Akpabio. Na scam, oh yes, senators. Well, that's his view. The next one says, regionalism is the way forward. And this is from Mr. Odafe Odege. The way forward is to deploy regional governments. The system as it is now is counterproductive. Every region should be allowed to generate their own revenue and enjoy competitive economy, which should usher Nigeria into a new modern development and sustainable economy and growth. Well, that's your view, and it's welcome. Next is on the panel discussion about the absence of the president and the state of the nation. The first one says, Senate president should act. It's coming from Mr. Admire Rosell. He said, if the president and the vice president are out of the country, the Senate president should step in and run the country. Again, that's his view. The next one says, the interest rate is suffocating. And this is from Mr. Onome Ushpare. He says, how many nations will make progress with this kind of policies in place? Today, with high interest rate and others, it is difficult. Next is on the edition that featured Mr. Inyoluwa Aboyeji. The first one is from Sir Charles Iyore from Durrant, Kent in England. He says it's a brilliant interview on Inside Sources. The Flutterwave founder showed depth and understanding of market linkages. There are, however, initial conditions which must be delivered before seeking to take flight on currency positions. You can't grow an economy on exporting raw materials and agricultural produce without value addition. Also, the domestic market demand for goods and services must be strong to grow local industry. And it says, well done. Thank you so much, Mr. Sir Iyore. I suspect this is an elderly man. The next one is titled, Technology for Our Youths. Technology as the way out for our youth. And this is from Mr. Solomon John. That there must be a connection between technology and agriculture. It says, using the best agronomy practices, understanding the value chain, and access to market are way out of youth seeking a better financial future. We hear you very well. The next one is titled, Government Should Not Stop Japa. And this is coming from Mr. Kende. It says, still on the edition of Mr. Boyeji, he said, you are saying my thoughts. It is annoying hearing the government trying to stop Japa instead of making more, as Inyoluwa said. Well, we have to be very careful because, yes, we should make more, but we need them first and foremost here. And Nigerians are missing their services. So we really we really have to sort ourselves out so that we don't miss out. I agree with you that people should go as far as they like, but hey, let's get them useful also here. Let's move on. The next one says a bold decision. This is coming from Mr. Idowu Olowe. The perspective of Inyi Aboyeji resonates with me. Citizens also have roles to play in nation building. The current government has taken some bold decisions, which is critical to rejigging the economy. Thank you for saying that. The next one says Nigeria is a poor country, still on Inyi's edition. This is coming from Mr. Abiodun Fakayode. Don't you agree with him that Nigeria is a poor country? A country of over 200 million people running a deficit budget of $30 billion compared to South Africa's 65 million population, having a budget of $125 billion. That confirms how poor we are, in my opinion. My view is that, yes, those facts are true, but Nigeria has no business being poor. Let's move on. Human capital development is the way forward. This is coming from Mr. Muscano. He says that he's talking about Iyi. Iyi spoke so well, and you were convinced, that is talking about me, to me, that the minerals in the ground don't make anyone rich, but it is the intellectual capacity to make adequate use of the deposits. That is the point Iyi made, and you couldn't find fault in it. Oh yes, I didn't have any problem with that. As long as we harness the potentials that we have no business being poor. Next one says, right policies are needed. And this is coming from Mr. Sheil Biskulev. Says, with the right government mentality and policies, Nigeria can soar in fintech, in technology, in science, and in artificial intelligence. Finally, this is a set of feedback on my take titled, Leave EFCC Alone. The first one says, say it louder, my brother. This is from Mr. Adewale Thomas from New York. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. The second one says, I will never be surprised if EFCC goes down as an unlawful organization. That is from Oji. We hope it will not happen. We need EFCC. And finally, we have the one that says, people are wrongly analyzing the point Mr. Agbakoba made, which is to clear the mistake that gave those 16 governors power to take on EFCC. He wrote the NAS, that is Mr. Agbakoba, to correct the mistake, and that is from Mr. Del Queiroz, trying to say that Mr. Agbakoba, have a point. Of course, Mr. Agbakoba has a point, and other Nigerians also have a point, and now we've had as many points as possible. Thank you so much for watching. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today we are having a special edition to look at the cabinet changes that are taking place this week. The presidential spokesperson, Mr. Bayo Ononuga, made a release where the president made 8 important decisions. We will be going into the details of reviewing those decisions and try to determine what has been achieved, how Nigerians will be impacted with those decisions. Join me in that conversation today. I have 2 important Nigerian public intellectuals. First, I have to my far right, Malam Baba Yusuf, a strategist and policy expert, who is also the first NACO Free Trade Zone Chief Executive Officer and the Group MD of a global trading company. Malam Baba Yusuf, you are welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here again.
It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
All right. Right to my immediate right is a public affairs analyst and an APC chieftain, Mr. Femi Odere. You are welcome to Inside Sources.
Thanks, Lalo, for inviting me.
All right. Yeah. So let's just get right into it. Baba. Now, if you look at the changes, like Mr. Ononuga said, 8 changes were listed, new ministries that were renamed, March, ministers reassigned, ministers dropped, other appointments, altogether forming about 8 important changes. Now, the question I want to ask you, Baba, you have served in the public sector. You were the former MD of NACO Free Trade Zone. Do you think, or put differently, I want you to compare where the shoe is hurting Nigerians and this change, or just changes. So if you compare, what is your assessment?
Thank you very much once again, Prof. Well, if I look at the changes, by and large, the key, which is a pain points for Nigerians, is the economy, social development, security, and of course, investment. These are the key areas that I feel have direct and tangential effect. And
when you say social development, you mean poverty and
poverty, the whole gamut of it, whether it is poverty, whether it is youth empowerment and strife, the entire social value chain. If we look at the movements, first of all, movement empire, I feel there's a kind of Mr. President trying to realign fit for purpose. What I mean by that is you look at Dr. Doris, that was hitherto Minister for Investment and Trade, has been moved to be Minister of State Finance. If you look at her background and areas of expertise, you will say she's more at home in terms of sector specialization. Maybe not 100%. She's not an economist, but she's been in the banking sector for a very long time.
Right.
So she's attuned with finance. She's attuned with a lot of things around that area. The appointment or nomination of Dr. Jumoke to become the substantive minister of investment, trade and industry is also, to my mind, a fit for purpose to address key issues of investment, trade and industry vis-a-vis how we rein in the FDIs and how they are able to make impacts. More specifically, we want to see how she's going to do that in terms of nano, micro, small and medium scale enterprises, now talking about the social impacts.
Right.
So she's a veteran in that area. I feel maybe there will be some significant change in the methodologies. And then the Minister of Education, even though not a specialist in the area, but of course, in strategy, we say when you get to a certain level in life, you move from being a specialist to a generalist. Otherwise, the presidents that we have, whether in Nigeria or any other place, will be very difficult to say what kind of person should become the president. Is it a doctor or a lawyer? At that level, you become a generalist. So you can bestride any office, to be honest. Right. Your acumen in terms of leadership, in terms of strategy, in terms of emotional intelligence, and managing resources, man and material, are what are required at that level. And Dr. Alausa, I believe is also a good hire to bestride education, even though he's a medical doctor. But I believe if you look at his track record, he's a technocrat par excellence.
Now, let me take it to Mr. Dere. If you look at what has happened, the expectations that Nigeria had, people were saying, oh, give us a new cabinet, all kinds of pressures. Will you say that those expectations have been fulfilled or not fulfilled? Or how do you, in terms of meeting the expectations of Nigerians, what has happened with this cabinet realignment or reshuffling?
Well, thanks, Lalu. I think we need to, first of all, take a breather, if not a step a little bit back, in trying to understand what President Tinubu is trying to do. In a political environment where decisions are made, it doesn't matter the soundness and the foolproof, if you will, if not the authenticity of that decision. As long as it is a political decision, you are not going to get everybody to support what you did or what you are trying to do. So saying that to say that even though the president has done what he believes needs to be done, and I also agree that cabinet change is actually a thing that should have happened even before now. But there are some people that will never even agree with him. Despite the fact that he has made these changes, some people are still going to find negative things to say about the changes. I believe PDP just made a statement that they're talking about some dirty rag, or how could you have change a dirty rag and replace that dirty rag with another dirty rag? That is politics. So we understand that. But one thing I don't want us to lose sight of is that, in my own view, this president has demonstrated over and over that he's a listening president. You can talk about Tinubu all you want as to what he did or what he shouldn't have done, but he's a listening president. He listens to what Nigerians are saying. He listens to their heartbeats and all of that. It is just not long ago that his immediate predecessor never even thought of changing his cabinet, not even for 4 years, but the entire 8 years. So what does that tell us?
But there were some changes in the second term.
Second term, but we can say it's more or less a cosmetic change.
But the whole,
for the whole
4 years.
Yes, So saying that to say that this president is actually listening to what Nigerians are saying, and let us also qualify the fact that he doesn't have to do it. He mustn't have to do it. because it's not constitutionally mandated for him to change his cabinet. But the fact that he's listening to what people are saying about the need to change or rejig his cabinet is something that he should be applauded for. And I would say that I don't think if anybody is going to find fault at all about whether or not he has made the right changes or not, the fact of the matter is just like Baba has just said, he's putting the square peg in a square hole. And don't let us forget the fact that this man is a headhunter. He's a headhunter par excellence. And that was actually what stood him out when he was the governor of Lagos State among his other peers, because he goes for the best, even the best that are even better than him. And he doesn't mind if the best is better than him. So I see this as a situation whereby people are going to talk about different things, but fundamentally, the president is in the right direction with these changes that he has made.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So back to you, Malam Baba. So you were talking, getting to the specifics, and you were talking about the livestock minister designate.
Yeah.
I think Malam Ida Mehia.
Idi Mehia, yes.
Idi Mehia. You know, so he seems to be one of the more, so far, the kind of response that people have had is a technocrat. He's also a livestock farmer. And, somebody even said to me that he's not even politically aligned. So that, to the point that Femi just made, that the president seems to have just picked him, just because of his technocratic expertise.
Yes.
So using that as a background, I want you to look at the new ministers that have been brought in. You already talked about Oduwole. What do you expect? Do you think that those new ministers proposed are, do they meet some of the important things that we think we are lacking, before the cabinet reshuffle?
Thank you very much for that very good question. I spoke about Dr. Jumoke. I think almost everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
But some of the people are not clear because maybe they don't know really who they are. Like, for example, Idi Mehia was not politically aligned. He's one of those back office gentlemen who was just doing his stuff.
Right.
But his stuff, he knows what to do. Yeah. And just like my fellow panelists mentioned, the fact that we are President Tinubu, whether you like him or not, is a talent hunter. We were a bit worried during the initial stage of his administration, especially this first cabinet, in terms of the size of the cabinet and some of the personalities that were given the opportunity. I called it the baby steps in the presidency for President Tinubu. Now I can see him, getting to the cruise level, if you like, in aviation as a pilot. And now he's getting his head clear. He's identifying the people. He's realigning them. And I'm expecting him to start tasking them. Now, moving on from that, you see Bianca Ojukwu. She is a diplomat. She was ambassador in Spain. Everybody knows that. And I don't want to speak to the politics of it, but when you speak to the technocracy of it, I believe she's also a good hire for that role. Of course, I'm saying all this, let me be clear with a caveat. This is without prejudice to their performance when they are given the role, because indeed, so-called technocrats and experts have been given roles and they have fallen short of expectations, or they have failed woefully, or even caught with their hands in corruption. But I believe she's also a good hire, especially given the fact that she's not only totally aligned to the APC, but the bottom line is he's looking for fit for purpose, right? We have Megaridin Gyadi. Interestingly, you should know him because he was in the former administration as Minister for Police Affairs, and he did his bit. Now he's given a role of labor, which I think for people that knew him in Sokoto and all that, he is somebody that has that relationship or emotional intelligence to engage the labor, I think, better than the predecessor that was holding that portfolio. Looking at Yusuf Atta, interestingly, it's also from my state. It is also good to note that this time around, APC, Mr. President now we have two ministers from Kano and one more from Jigawa. Sueba is from Jigawa, but her entire practice is in Kano. So now, if you look at it, he was Speaker in the State Assembly. But importantly, if you talk about the relevance of his appointment, he was a principal project manager in the Kano State Housing Corporation back in the days, before he forayed into politics. So maybe that experience, I'm sure not even maybe, will come into play, you know, at the national level as a Minister of State, working under the architect, you know, that is a veteran in that area also. So I believe that will be more suitable than Gwarzo, who was completely not visible throughout his tenure. I mean, Gwarzo that left as Minister of State Housing, who was from Kano, replaced by Atta. And then when you go to Sueba, Dr. Sueba is PhD, you know, social science education. Masters, now that is where I like it, curriculum development. And that is a key gap in our education.
Even also, you know, just a little interjection. She's also has research interest in girl child education.
Absolutely, I was getting to that.
She's now Minister of State.
Absolutely. I was also getting to that because she's done a lot of things with the British Council and a lot of, you know, multinationals with regards to empowering the girl child, boosting it and all that. And then importantly also the curriculum development, because we have a lot of gaps about that, you know, from way back in the 70s and 80s, you know, in the from 2005 to date, our curriculum strategy in schools has been very, very, you know, below par. So I hope she will bring that wealth of experience as Minister of State Education to add value. Of course, she's a lecturer in the BUK for a very long time and a dean of a department, head of department, sorry. So I hope that will add value. So in terms of these hires and expectations, I will say, you know, in terms of social impacts, in terms of economic impacts, we would like to see how that will add. But I will drop with this. Laulu, this is, if you do a rule of thumb, maybe about 30-35% of the entire cabinet in terms of new entrants. We still have people that have been in the seat for a long time. Albeit we have 10 that have been reassigned. I reckon the reassignment will also reinvigorate the team and refocus some of these reassigned ministers to maybe be more productive. Because I believe that there's a need for a rejig in the strategy so that they are more productive, because they can only make impact as a team, not as a fraction of the whole.
Excellent. Now, so moving along, so one of the ministers that made a very big impression in this country, who has now been fired, is the now outgoing Minister for Women Affairs, you know, Barrister Uju Ohane. You know, she's been relieved. And we have the former Minister of State and Police, you know, that's Imani. Now, what's your comment about the fact that, you know, Barrister Uju has been relieved? Do you think that she was actually controversial? You know, there are quite a lot of buzz around her. You know, she is the minister who will drive to an event and say, you guys can't hold this event, you know, and quite a lot of other drama. Do you consider her, you know, discharging, you know, as something that is due?
Lalu, let me first of all say that somebody that you are not close to, somebody that you are not in close proximity to, you have to be very careful how you judge them. And sometimes when people do certain things or they say certain things, if you don't understand where they're coming from, it is easy for you to judge them or dismiss them and all of that. So I wouldn't be as negative for that.
So you don't think that she's controversial?
But I'm going to address that because we discussed issues when she was the Minister of Women Affairs in one of the APC platforms that I belong. Controversial is a word that I would choose to use in relative term. And what do I mean by that? To me, when you try to study what some of the things she said, it may not necessarily be what she said that can be deemed to be controversial, but how she delivered what she said can make a difference. We have a polity where people tend to be just laid back. They don't want you to rock the boat. They want you to just do things that they expect you to do and all of that. Right. Then when you have a personality that is coming with very strong opinion in terms of how she believes things need to be done and how it should be done, and she actually graft, for lack of a better word, those things into the audience and to the people that is superintending. There's a tendency to misconstrue that, And so in our own case, in my own view, without any prejudice and without trying to judge her, because I'm not close to her, to actually pick her brain to ask her, where are you coming from? It may not necessarily be what she said that Nigerians described or defined as being controversial, but the way she delivered those messages.
Okay.
That's my own.
All right. It's coming from an APC chieftain, I understand your perspective and it's welcome. So I have a view about the cabinet reshuffle and the impact that it's likely to have. Now, it's my view, and, I'll take it to you. Both of you can comment on this, I think that there's still a problem of coordination, and I'm not sure, I have not seen how the president intends to beef up the need for coordination in his government. And I'll give just, an example. So EFCC is trying to arrest former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. Okay? And we've seen quite a bit up and down about it. Is it EFCC that wants to arrest the former governor or the federal government of Nigeria? That if it's EFCC, okay, then the other agencies that also have, that are within the territory, can just sit down and be watching. But if it's the federal government of Nigeria that wants to arrest the guy, then, what happened to the police? There are police people around the incumbent governor who is protecting the former governor. There are DSS operatives around both of them. So what is the role of the police? What is the role of the DSS? Why don't we have a coordination? EFCC says, this guy is a suspect, we want to get him. But it's a struggle. Yet, he has police security, he has DSS. Why aren't they communicating? If the president had an enforcer, the enforcer we call the DGSSS, we call the IG of the police, we call the chairman of EFCC and say, this is an embarrassment to Nigeria that we are having a problem arresting this person. That's an example, in my view, of the problem of coordination. And there are quite a few other instances. I have not seen how this cabinet reshuffle has addressed that.
For that question, I will quickly also add it because that is part of the problem I think Minister Uju had. Mr. Uju, because if you look at the track record and the background, in fairness to her, is not a core technocrat. Neither does she have any solid long-term political antecedents. But she's a fantastic person that has been doing a lot of initiatives to empower women and to empower children and all that. I don't know what happened when these people were onboarded ab initio, which also speak to the issue of coordination. I thought during induction, they had a retreat. Right. And part of the retreat should have addressed the communication strategy and the communication process flow,
right,
which will include the methodologies of coordination, synergy, and also alignment of objectives. The entire cabinet should be moving in alignment with a one-line lockstep strategic objective,
right,
flowing from Mr. President.
Right.
And that is when I talked about the overarching strategy.
Yes.
And every other minister and ministry will lock in the strategy, their own strategy sectoral, to the overarching strategy. And that strategy, those, strategies should be approved by Mr. President. And we do what is called buy-in of the entire strategies,
right,
and have what you call the relationship matrix that will address how they will work in synergy where they need to,
right,
because in fairness, there are areas that they have to work in silos.
Right.
But the important thing is there must be a hub that will drive those conversations. And that's what you are talking about. Right. For example, the office of Hadiza Bala Usman could actually as well do that. But importantly also, the personality types ab initio matter, because these are adults and we don't expect Mr. President to be babysitting them.
Right.
But Mr. President can put a system in place to deal with these different personality types and consolidate so that they can work together. And that is why Uju was having a problem, with her communication, her engagements, and her passion also sometimes pushes her over the edge to run against what is supposed to be, for example, when she had to write a petition against the United Nations, which is due to lack of advice and counsel for people that should know. So I think
it wasn't due to ignorance.
Well, ignorance is a function of the system addressing that. Like I said, you bring people with different backgrounds and expertise. You should have a template, a standard operating procedure. I tell you what, during my days in the corporate and in public sector, there was a time we had to have, a memo that came from the board of directors to say, anybody at executive management, not even lower cadre, that communicates with outside stakeholders without clearance, or at least knocking the door of the legal department, in this case, Attorney General of the Federation,
right,
or the Chief of Staff, for example,
or
someone, then that person will be fired. You must get clearance so that you don't put the country or the company into legal jeopardy or strategic mistakes, which is what you are talking about. I want to see that happening, because until that happens, you will have a boat full of experts that are all looking in different directions with a captain that has a mission. And at the end of the day, what will happen is the boat will capsize.
All right. So one of the areas that I think Nigerians really, really need a lot of help from their governments, federal, state, and local government, is in the area of human capital development. It's so key. Education, health, youth engagement, and all of that stuff. So we now have a new minister for education proposed. And the former minister, in fact, both of them were, taken out, because there were two ministers in education before. There was the substantive minister, and then there was the Minister of State. The substantive minister was Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Maman Tahi, and then I think Dr. Sununu. Both of them are out of the ministry. Professor Tahi is out of government. Dr. Sununu gets a second chance, as it were. Now, the question I want to ask, and I want to take it from Malala. What should be the role of a federal minister of education in a country where primary and secondary education are essentially responsibilities of state government? Okay, education is on the concurrent list. But a lot of resources exist in the federal government. For instance, UBEC, the Universal Basic Education Commission, they have tens of billions of naira that is not being accessible. How should the new Minister of Education help to get these funds out? A lot of our schools, public schools, they don't really exist. But there's money. I mean, this is one issue that I really seem to be getting stuck on, because I don't understand how money is there in UBEC. The last time I checked, about 47 billion naira. But states can't access it because some of them say they don't have the counterpart funding. Can the Minister of Education say that, look, Let's get this money to those people and find a way to recoup it in the future, just so we can deal with the problem of the destruction of public education. Madam Baba.
Thank you. It will work if the minister knows his role. All ministers' roles are strategic. Now, the MDAs have, as it's going down, strategic and operational. And that is where the Minister of Education will make a lot of impact at the state level for, our primary education. You mentioned UBEC. So he will need to apply a strategy of sensing and influencing to provide those interventions.
Right.
So he has to move from a transactional mindset, he rather, Dr. Alausa,
right,
to a strategic mindset to engage them in a way and manner that lockdown money will have to be useful for not the governors, but those pupils and students. And there are many methodologies to achieve that, whether or not they have the counterpart funding. So that will now show us the technocratic prowess of the minister to engage the state and ensure that the impacts are made. The same way with the tertiary institution, with the TED Fund and others, we have long-standing issue with the ASU that has refused to go away. How the minister is also able to manage that, and the curriculum issues we talked about. So it's a highly strategic role. So this strategy of influencing and sensing is what will work in this case, because the subnationals are independent, and so he needs to be able to engage them for them to buy in, and then for him to make the impact, even if they don't have the counterpart funding. Creativity in managing these resources is what, for example, to land, if it takes 10 naira to do this, and the counterpart funding of the state is 3 naira, while the federal will provide 7 naira, why don't we value the 7 naira impacts and deal with it? And like you said, come with a proviso, whether it will be deductible at source from FAC or whatever, going forward, in batches. But the point is, the action, the impacts must reach these pupils, not tomorrow, not next year, but now.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Mr. Odere, since I think Obasanjo started the tradition in 1999 when he made himself Minister of Petroleum Resources. Yaradua didn't. I think Yaradua appointed a minister, but it was Yaradua, of course, as we know, unfortunately passed on while I was there, and then it's over to Jonathan, who appointed the Minister for Petroleum Resources. But then came Buhari, he was the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and Tinubu has followed suit. Now, we have 2 ministers of states, and
one for oil and
one for oil, one for gas, and the president is the minister. Do you think? And I'm putting to you very, very simple questions, Mr. Odere. Do you think that the president should remain, or look at it holistically? Should we have presidents being the minister of petroleum resources?
You may have put the question to me in a very simple term, but you may not get a simple answer. Again, as a politician that you call me. But then I want to focus more on structure. Yes, you mentioned the fact that Obasanjo just started this idea of making himself, upon all the other functions and responsibilities that he has, and none of that. See, to me, this speaks to the ineffectiveness of the system in which we are operating. The question is, why do we have ministers for other federal government or resource portfolios managing there, and then we all of a sudden will say, oh no, all cannot be managed by somebody else except the president. To me, what that speaks to is that we still don't understand how to operate our system, how to calibrate our system in such a way that whoever is somewhere can be rest assured that he's going to do the right thing. And if at the end of the day, he or she doesn't do the right thing, the system will take him out. As simple as that. So, answering your question directly, Laolu, since it is this tradition that Obasanjo just started, and for some reason, all the subsequent presidents just wanted to follow the tradition. Maybe there's something that I don't know that is making them to appropriate, if you will, the petroleum portfolio into their care. I don't know the reason, but somebody has to know why is it. But the question we should be asking ourselves as citizens who wants development for everything, and who also say that, okay, if ministers can man other portfolio, why is it that we cannot have a substantive minister to have, to be in charge of petroleum? So that may very well be a question that the interest of the public will have to begin to debate.
Excellent. Malam, what do you think?
I believe that the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria should not distract himself with the portfolio of petroleum. And I'll give 4 quick answers. Number one, from the point of view of purview, the top 4 oil and gas producing countries in the world, their presidents do not have business being ministers of in terms of the volume, in terms of the value. So to talk about interest, or maybe somebody shouldn't touch something there. In terms of sophistication, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, they don't have their president overseeing such portfolios. In terms of size of population, China, Russia, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, you don't see the president holding the portfolio of petroleum or any other portfolio. And I will use that opportunity to talk to the size of the cabinet. I would have loved to see Mr. President running a lean cabinet.
It's actually bigger now by 1.
Exactly. In the 21st century, as a digital man that he is, as an accountant and as an auditor that he is, and a man manager. What am I saying? You see, if so, then we should have 5 presidents. As president, he's bestriding the entire country, 1 person.
Yeah.
So why do we have even this minister of state issue? 2 ministers struggling to manage 1 sector, and for 1 year they didn't make impact, and you are babysitting them, moving them around. I don't think the presidents are being fair to themselves, whether it is Buhari or President Tinubu. So to land, I think also to move away from this shadow and the cobweb within the oil and gas and the politics of it, the president should remove his hand from petroleum and give it a focal point, task them and hold them to account.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. So we're wrapping up now. I have always thought that, there's some certain ministries, that we don't really need. For instance, I'm of the view, very unpopular by the way, that we don't need a Minister of Information. I think it's just possibly a colonial mentality or something that we've just gotten used to with the military government. I think we need to have a coordination of communication from the president's office through all his ministries. Okay, which is what you have in the U.S., for instance. In the U.S., you don't have a Minister of Information, a Secretary of Information. In UK, you don't have, and
even in France.
And we're not mentioning these places because they are development. It's just because they even do communication better. They do information management better. I think that what you should have is a coordination of government from the center, that's the president or the prime minister, and then all the ministries and the MDAs, we have their own communication units coordinated from the center. We don't need a big ministry, but that is still something that is, it hasn't happened. But in the area of sports, this president has done something that I think is quite unique. We also don't need a Ministry of Sports. Have you ever had a Ministry of Sports, even in UK or China or US, when they go to events, they say Team US, because these are things that people do, and for the most part is business. Now, that ministry has been cancelled, has been scraped altogether, and everything has gone back to the, which makes a lot of sense. But I also wanted to have your take, both of you. We start from Mr. Odere. What do you think about the idea of scraping the Ministry of Sports? And then, I'll take it to Malam. If you also agree that it should be scraped, how do you think that can help, to turn sports into business, which is what it is. First, Mr. Howard.
Yeah, Lalu, I cannot agree with you more concerning the needlessness, if you will, of some federal ministry, including the Ministry of Information. Just like I said, you're an information person, and in my own little way too, I can still be considered an information person as well. I've thought about some of these things over the years. Yes, we don't really need Ministry of Information. All the MDAs have information. So, information experts. So I think these are the people that should be driving information dissemination to the Nigerian public as to what their principals in any of the MDAs are doing. And even that's one of the ways that will put the feet of these ministers under the fire. Absolutely. Because when the media actually says something, that either they are doing or they are not even doing, then they will have to defend themselves. So it makes them to sit up so that they can not just be lackadaisical about information dissemination. I quite agree with you, and I will help you out as to another ministry that even shouldn't even be in existence, and this is the Ministry of Women Affairs. Why? Because in my own view, what the women are concerned with are pretty much what other Nigerians are concerned with. One, they're concerned about the education of their children. Ministry of Education is already there. They're concerned about their economic situation, and Ministry of Trade, Investment, and all of that are still there. And they are concerned, maybe to some extent, about the women issue in terms of feminism and all of that. And they are not even if they are concerned about those things, those concerns are actually secondary. If they are concerned about their marriage or whatever it is, there's really nothing the government can do. If marriage is going to break up, it's going to break up. It depends on how the individual has managed their home and all of that. Right. So the question now is, do we really need the Ministry of Women Affairs? Not necessarily, because the things that are fundamental to women in terms, the things that are of value to them, if you will, there are other ministries that are already taking care of that. So why do we need the Ministry of Women Affairs? That's just to add to one of the ministries that you said are not needed.
Okay, yeah.
I agree with both of you. I will just expand it to say, not you see, the notion that we should upgrade all functions to ministerial is what brought us to where we are.
True.
And it politicizes the role and derails the focus. I agree with you. I don't want to add much about the information. You are spot on with regards to how we should manage the information portfolio. There are departments and agencies under the ministry that can be given added responsibility and a different line of reporting, maybe to the SGF or somebody. Then we relieve our budget of this excessive cost from a cost perspective.
Right.
From a governance perspective, we free the civil service of those loopholes, and the politics of it.
Right.
And the same way you talk about that, for example, the merger that now we have Ministry of Arts, Culture, Tourism, and Creative. I feel the arts, just like sports, and I commend Mr. President for taking us back to the NSC days, right, from 1962, when it was christened the Nigerian Sports Commission. It should remain like that and run like a business, as an enterprise, and it will be lean. It runs faster and more efficient that way, devoid of politicians that will come and sit there with no clue. The same thing with arts. Because when you say you have a minister, that art is having similarities with sports. And if you have a focal point where you have a department or agency that will not be driving that, we don't necessarily have to have, with the kind of socio-economic issues we have now, we don't have to have it at ministerial level. And I dare say, the fact that something is at departmental or agency level doesn't make it any less.
True.
For example, the Bureau for Public Enterprise is in charge of privatization of our entire national assets.
That's a big deal.
So it's not about the name at ministerial level. It's the positioning within the organogram and the focal point we give it.
Excellent, excellent. So I think that is commendable as we begin to wrap up. Even the regional development, the way it's going up, every geopolitical zone is going to get. I know that Chief Edwin Clark has already raised hell that said that how can you scrape Niger Delta Ministry, but the Niger Delta Development Corporation is still there.
Absolutely.
And all the other development agencies are there. I think this is one of the more commendable moves of the president to say, look, bring everything together under regional development. Last point I wanted to make, and then, you guys will also respond, is that it's also a good thing that we now have 2 ministers in the Foreign Affairs Ministry. I think the last 1 year must be probably the only time in recent memory when you have just one minister in charge of foreign affairs. Foreign affairs is a very big, we have possibly about 160 missions and, diplomatic posts all over the world. We have AU, we have ECOWAS, we have UN, there are several, tens of international agencies. Having only one minister do that job is just simply impossible. And I think that now that we have a second minister, and you spoke about Madam Bianca, I think maybe the work will get better. And I was hoping that, the president will now step up and appoint ambassadors. Because up until now, for about a year now, the president has withdrawn all our ambassadors abroad. And we don't have ambassadors in any of the embassies, all over the world. But I'm hoping that now that we have a second minister, maybe the 2 of them can prevail on the president to name ambassadors. Your final takes, Madam, and then.
Okay. I am of the view that in terms of priority, first of all, in terms of strategy and in terms of priority, the appointment of the envoys is even more important than the appointment of the Minister of State Foreign Affairs, Prof. Because, like I said earlier, if somebody is qualified to be a minister, that person, if you look at the Constitution, is qualified to be the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And if you don't have the capacity to bestride over oil and gas or foreign affairs ab initio, then maybe you shouldn't even be there. That being said, it is good enough that some ministries at this point in time should have 2 people to steer the affairs and get quick turnaround, if you like.
Right.
But it is very, very, very crucial. And I use this opportunity to add my voice to call, to urge Mr. President to whatever it is. Even if we're in a war situation, he has to take the action. Having the envoys is a matter of national priority, and it is good for him in his governance. It will help him deliver, and I'm sure he's aware of that. I'll bet we are just urging him to look at that.
Thank you. Your last word.
My last word, and Laulu, is about what we are already talking about, and that is the viability or otherwise of the appointment of a Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. You see, the way I look at it is this. Foreign policy actually is an extension of domestic policy. And unfortunately, we are in a climb that most of our portfolios and intervention, either domestically or with the rest of the world, actually have a very heavy dose of politics rather than a very heavy dose of enterprise. Until we move away from injecting politics and injecting enterprise, we're just going to be taking 1 step forward and 3 steps backward. I don't see, and I could be wrong, I don't see the appointment of a Minister of State for Foreign Affairs changing things a whole lot. What we need to do is actually, just like Malam said, the appointment of the ambassadors are actually key because, again, it depends on those ambassadors. And one of the things that they should be doing is how to bring back wealth and development in so many other forms into the country, networking with the business community in their respective countries and getting policies, understanding policies of other countries as to how it's going to better our station as a country. These are the enterprise kind of thing that I think it is more important than the politics of appointing Minister for Foreign Minister of State for Foreign Affairs.
Thank you so much. And we should say to all the new ministers that the president has, appointed that Nigerians expect a lot. I think it's the view of this panel, even that, appointments such as that of Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Mr. E.D. Meher, and then Dr. Alausa and Professor Dr. Netenwe, who is going to manage humanitarian affairs, that those are very key appointments. And for the most part, Nigerians have a lot of expectations. And we hope that these new ministers will actually bring a new lease of life. And hopefully, like we always say here, Nigeria will prevail. So all the new ministers and the ones that have been reassigned and the old ones, please have it at the back of your mind that your job is to keep Nigeria going forward. Thank you so much, Malam Baba Yusuf, for coming back to Inside Sources. And thank you, Mr. Femi Odede.
Thank you. Let me quickly take this opportunity to congratulate the Honorable Minister, Tunji Alausa, because I know him one-on-one. We were Chicago boys.
Oh, that's good.
Well, these are the guys in Chicago, and I'm sure they have their traces to the president who also used to be in Chicago. That is it. Another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail. That is why we are here. We will keep at it. We won't relent because we know that together we can build a very strong nation. My name is Laulu Akonde, and by the grace of God, I'll see you again. Our next edition, which is going to be on Sunday. Thank you for watching.